This video is sponsored by His Vessel Academy. Today we're going to talk about slope and kind of break it down a little bit to help you with the steps. So slope is your rise over run. I love to use Jesus rose from the grave so you could run the race. So we're going to use this formula, m, which is your slope, equals the change in y, which is one of the y's minus the other y, and the same y that goes with the x, or the x over minus the x. So we're going to call it y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So let's take a look at what some steps are. The first thing I would like to see you do is label your points. This is important so that way you don't get them confused and mix up your points, because that's typically a typical error. So we're going to start with calling this x1, this y1, x2, and y2. So once we have that, we want to fill that into the actual equation. So here we have our y2, and we want to come up here and make sure that you use your y2 that you have with it. So make sure you're following along. Then we're going to keep our same sign here, and we're going to look for our y1, which is right there. So it's 7 minus 1. That's our numerator. The next thing I want to do is do the same thing. I want to make sure that I get my x2, and since I've labeled my points, this will help me a lot. So I'm going to get a 4 here, and I'm going to keep the same sign in between, and I'm going to put a 2 here. And I want to make sure that I have it correct, and I'm going to double check by going, okay, I know I have to go the 7 first and then the 4, and I can clearly see that there's a 7 over 4 here. And I'm going to do the same with this one. This is 1, and then it's going to be over 2. And I'm going to make sure that they line up, or else that means I kind of switched my order. Also make sure that my y's, my y value, here, my rise, is going to be in the numerator, and my x's are going to be in the denominator. So that's the first thing I want to do. I went ahead and typed it in so that way you can kind of see it a little neater, and you can clearly see it. Now it's just a matter of actually just solving. What is 7 minus 1? What is 4 minus 2? And then simplify it even further. So you should get 6 over 2, because 7 minus 1 is 6. 4 over 2 is 2, or so 4 minus 2, sorry, is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So what does it actually mean when it says 3? What is that purpose, or what do I use that for? Well, it's the slope. It means it's positive. We can clearly see it's a positive number. And it says every time I rise up 3, when I go to graph this, I'm going to go over 1. And we'll talk about that in another lesson. But realize that this is the steepness of the line. It is going to give me a positive slope. So keep that in mind as well. You're going to go uphill from left to right. And make sure you're doing it that direction as well. So we're going to do a couple of practice problems. I'd like to see how well you do. Make sure you're getting them. Here it is. So the first thing I want you to do is label your points and then put them where they belong and see if you can find the slope of this number. Okay, so what I want to make sure you're doing is you're first doing, as I said, the x1, y1, x2, y2, and you can see that or if it helps a little bit, maybe you want to write them out here so you have them a little bit neater. Your y1, and mark it over here for your 2, your x2, which is 4, and your y2, which is 8. And you can clearly see now I can plug them in. So my y2 is 8. My y1 is 2. I'm going to keep my negative sign in between it. I'm also going to do it with the x, and I have this 4, and you'll notice I did keep that negative, but I put my negative 1 in parentheses. And what I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but we always call this little symbol right here Mr. Confusion. So we're just going to knock him out like they did in the olden days and he becomes positive. So we have 4 plus 1, which is 5. So my answer for this one is 6 over 5. Don't forget to keep your minus sign, keep your negative sign, and then get rid of it once you see that it is a double negative. We even have that in English. Did not do my homework. All right, let's try another one. Go ahead and try this one. Pause the video. There is the answer. Just make sure you have this x1, y1, x2, and y2 in there. I did plug them in there. This time I did end up with a negative 4 minus 4, and then I had a 4 minus 2, and I end up with a negative 8 on top, a 2 on the bottom, and I end up with a negative 4 as my slope. This does mean I am going downhill, and so when I'm looking at my graph, if I was to graph it, my graph should go this direction. Hopefully that helped, and you have no problem solving slopes now. At His Vessel Academy, we offer live interactive classes as well as some self-paced courses. Visit hisvesselacademy.com for more information and register today.